G'day and welcome to the GameDay Squad NRL Fantasy Show. I'm Dill, although you cannot see me, and that is Stu. And we are the Fantasy Bros. We're back again, partnering with GameDay Squad to bring you all you need to know to succeed in GDS Rugby League this season. There's one obvious glaring issue that we have right now. I'm sure everyone can hear me, but they cannot see my beautiful face. So I'm sorry about that. Unfortunately, for some reason, my camera decided it did not want to show my face today. That's probably because I've been crying since Monday, and we'll talk about why soon. Obviously, it is Wednesday, and you know what that means. It is time to take a deep dive into our round 22 squads after Teamless Tuesday has dropped. Stu, we've only got 6 rounds left, mate. It feels like this season has just flown by, but there's still plenty to play for, both weekly, season long, and then also, we haven't really touched on yet, there's also a finals competition coming up at the end of the regular season as well.
There sure is, mate. Yeah, g'day Dill, g'day viewers, and g'day listeners. Yeah, it's a bit weird looking at the screen and just seeing my face. Normally I get to stare into your beautiful eyes. We might actually lose a couple of viewers who only just join in to look at you and stare at you during the show. So I hope we don't lose any viewers. So you just got me to look at the moment, guys. But of course, you can listen to Dill's beautiful tones, mate. Not a great week for both of us in the GDS front in terms of overall finishings. Bit of a back down to earth for me after first, third, and fourth last round. The best I could manage this round was a 7th, but still sitting there second overall in the Challenger competition, which is my main competition, where I'll get a nice high price card if I can just hang in there for the next 6 or so weeks. But the Jerome Hughes, Haumole Olakwatu picks certainly did not come off. Let's regroup this week and get some more picks correct. You said that you didn't have a good weekend. Don't tell me the King of the Cup has been knocked out.
Yeah, unfortunately, mate, the King of the Cup did not survive last round. Congratulations to Bruiser Cannon. He knocked me off. I said it in the Discord. Obviously, congratulations goes to Bruiser. Hell of a fight. But I also blame GameDay Cal for asking and putting out the question, will anyone beat me? And then I also blame going away for 4 days without phone reception at all and having no idea what is going on in the world of rugby league and GDS. But at the end of the day, I've got to take a good hard look at myself in the mirror and decide whether I can still claim that coveted mantle of King of the Cup. I'm not sure if I'm worthy of that at the moment. We'll see. But look, obviously they're down to just the final 8 there in the week 7 matches. And I think Bruce has got a pretty good chance of taking the whole thing out. Obviously, a couple of good players there still left. Circus Crew, I know, is doing quite well in the Classic Comp. Fez Monkey's always in there around a win. And Guard Dogs, I think he throws in a few pods each week and they seem to come off a lot. And then Jax, if everyone's in the Discord, you'll know Jax quite well. And he likes to put up a good fight. So there's plenty of players left that have a good opportunity to win that.
Mate, such a big script still to be written. We've got Melissa in the comments saying that Cal definitely jinxed you. She's on your side, but we got Sif Kanga in here nice and early. He was here about half an hour before the stream kicked off, and there's a rumor that he actually sleeps in this chat room. So thanks for joining us, both of you, as always. But Sif Kanga has now called you John Cena because we cannot see you, and we cannot see you in those week 7 matchups either. Mate, a couple of big names there. Gardy, gee, doesn't he play some strange cards that often come to fruition and work for him, and maybe that's a big reason why he's there in the top 8. But he said his defense has been doing the job lately. He hasn't been scoring incredibly well, but his opposition hasn't been going great either. We've got Fez Monkeys in there, who's a bit of a goat in the GDS arena. Plenty of titles to his name, and he may add another one in a couple of rounds' time. But look, mate, Bruiser, if he goes on to win the whole thing, you can claim that you only lost to the eventual winner. But won't there be a number of funny comments in the Discord server if Jax gets up? I think sure. There'll be a few people watching very closely to see how Ahan goes this week. If you're around, Ahan, give us a shout, say hello in the Discord server, and be good to see some back and forth between you and Jax this week. Look, Dill, You might not be alive in the Classic Cup anymore, but you and I obviously continue to have plenty of success this season, particularly with our weekly and season long ventures. And it's obviously not too late for everyone to get involved with GameDay Squad. They can win weekly prizes, even if they aren't in line for season long prizes. And it's definitely not too late to get started. Like you said, that there is going to be a finals competition on pretty soon. But there's still 6 weeks of the regular season to get a team organised, enter that team in and win some packs or even some cash prizes and build that squad up for next season. So to let our viewers know how to do that and where they find some more of our content.
Yeah, that's right, mate. As you said, there's plenty of opportunities still to win plenty of cash and packs, particularly in that contender competition, which is a new one that started middle of the season that has a highest rarity of a gold that you can play, has a bit of a salary cap there as well, and there's no special cards. So it's a perfect opportunity for some of our new players, new coaches to get involved there. And we've obviously spoken about some of our mates who got involved and had some success, and they're just building their squads ready for the next season with some of the golds and the silvers that they've been collecting through the packs that they've won. So there's plenty of opportunity. If you haven't already, make sure you sign up. Go to the GameDay Squad website, go to the app, download that app, use the promo code FBRL25 when you are signing up, and you'll get 3 9-player common packs straight away. You can also use our referral codes that are on screen, or you can use your mates' referral codes to get some more packs as well and get that sorted. Although we haven't had a lot of success last week, we like you said, we continue to have success across a range of competitions, and we try and share that success as much as possible across both our TikTok, our Instagram, and YouTube pages. So if you're not already involved, make sure you are following at FantasyBros AU so that you can get everything you need to know, particularly around the classic and contender squads. I'm starting to dive a little bit deeper into there and talk through some different strategies around that as well. So that's something to keep an eye on throughout the show. I'm keen to jump in and have a look at this week, though. So if there's anything else, you're keen to jump in and get straight into hookers.
Mate, just the launch of the football season. Just a final reminder there. Got a whole new ball game happening over at GameDay Squad. We just had it drop not too long ago, maybe just over a week, and there's already been some amazing cards hit and some really big names that a lot of the boys are chasing. Boys and girls over there in the Discord are chasing some of those huge cards. So that kicks off in about just over 2 weeks. So you still got plenty of time to get involved with the English Premier League football game. It sort of ties in really nicely to the conclusion, the end of the regular season of the footy, and then we get a nice big 38 rounds ahead of us for the football season. You reckon your football knowledge is going to pick up over the next few months?
Yeah, 100%, mate. So I've already learned a little bit over the last week, and I think I might get back involved. I used to watch City a long time ago, but I'm keen to learn some new players and maybe have some early mornings or some late nights as well.
You beauty.
Alrighty, let's jump straight into the hookers. And look, we harp on about that guy Blake Brayley each and every week. He continues to just be an absolute godsend in terms of the hooker position. Over the last 6 weeks, his stats have just been unreal. He's had scores of 41, 58, 72, 75 over the last month. And since round 15, Blake's averaged almost 70 GDS points, which is 25 points better than his previous 14 rounds. So it's hard to go past Brayley. But there is someone else that we're looking at, and that's Harry Grant. He's sort of last month as well been quite fruitful for GDS. And I guess that's where I'm sort of stuck at the moment is I'm really keen to go Brayley, but I really like what Grant's doing and the matchup that he has as well. Grant's been averaging 50-odd points since round 17, coming off that 69 point effort. Last week against the Roosters, his stats in terms of points scored by hookers are always a little bit skewed, as you know, most teams play those 2 hookers. But if we look at the combined production of hookers against the Eels the last couple of weeks, there's definitely an opportunity there. The hookers, the Dragons hookers came up against against the Eels, and they combined for 81 points. So that was both Little and Cook combining for 81. And then the Raiders came up against the Eels and they combined for 72. That's both Starling and then Owen Paddy off the bench. So there's plenty of opportunity there for Harry Grant. For me, it's just the concern over, do I play Brayley or do I play Grant? And right now, it's a little bit of a coin flip. I'm not quite sure where I'm going yet.
Yeah, interesting. We've got Sif Kanga saying Grant in capital letters. He must be pretty excited to be playing Grant this week. And we got Ryan P in the chat once again, who's saying that Harry Grant looked after him last week. I don't think Ryan P will mention his Wade Egan selection. But yeah, certainly some love for Harry Grant in the chat already. Look, can't split Harry Grant and Blake Brayley. Me either. But I've got the solution for you. Why don't you just play both of them? We really talk about just playing one or the other and then loading up that bench forward position with middles or edges. But I'm so tempted to just play both of them and not try to pick who's going to score better this week, and just play one of them over maybe someone who's a bit more reliable as a middle, but maybe has a bit of a lower ceiling and a lower floor as well, like in the edge forward position. So I don't mind the double up this week. I haven't really ever considered it. I've just wanted to pick the one hooker that I think will get a nice solid 50, move on from there and go for someone with a bit of upside. But I see both of these players with a bit of upside, particularly coming into the end of the season. They're both really creative players out of dummy half, and they're going to take on some of those big forwards who have played 20 matches already this year, who are starting to feel the effects of a long season, a lot of contact. There's a lot of injuries already occurring over the NRL, so there's a lot of backup and players that haven't played a lot this season so far. So I think these two blokes will take advantage of those, not just this week, but over the few weeks to come. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing both this round, and I haven't really considered that recently. Look, Harry Grant threw his hat into the ring really last week as that one big player that could probably contend with Blake Brayley for that one hooker position with a very nice 69. There were still those 7 missed tackles, like you mentioned, but he had 37 minutes on the field without Jerome Hughes after that pretty unfortunate shoulder injury. And it just looked like he was taking a little bit more control and command of the team moving forward. Cam Munster is obviously a really creative and good ball running player on the left. And if Tyron Wishart does start on the right, he's got a really similar game to there of Cameron Munster as well. So I think we can see a lot more organising and a lot more involvement in the attack from Harry Grant. I think he was sort of a little bit more, could just pass off the deck. Nice clean ball to Munster and Hughes. But I think he's going to have to take a bit more ownership now. And we saw that already with that big score on the weekend just gone. His scores with Hughes in the past haven't been amazing. Just the score of 52 this year, but 3 scores last year of 58, 35, and 66. But look, we'll talk about the middle forward and the edge forward shortly. I just don't see enough viable options that I think can guarantee me a solid score with some upside. So that's why I just like Harry Grant and Blake Brayley in this one.
Yeah, and I guess that's the thing that we've probably spent majority of the season talking about playing at least 4 or 5 middles, and we've sort of started to move away from that the last few weeks and start looking at potentially that 3rd or even 4th edge. So I guess the advice, at the end of the day is you want to be flexible. You don't want to get stuck in a rut of just playing the same sort of combinations each and every week. You want to look for those opportunities where you can exploit those matchups and you can look for that upside. As you said, look, there's probably a handful of middles that will get you your sort of 45 to 50 points, and they're pretty safe bets. They're also, playing sort of 50 minutes on the field, so they're getting that point per minute that we like to see. But we want some upside, particularly coming into the back end of the season. You've probably locked up a top 3 spot in Challenger, but I'm still pushing for that top 10 in Classic. So I probably just need to do a couple of things that are a little bit different. So I really like the potential of having that Harry Grant Brayley combination there, but then that sort of impacts our middles and our edges. So let's jump across to middles. And look, we're obviously playing the big 3. I think it's quite easy to look at those names there and go, yeah, Payne Haas, Yo, and May will all get a run in their squad. Is there any concern over Haas based on what we saw last week?
I don't think so. Look, the Broncos are there and thereabouts. They've got a really winnable fixture this weekend, despite how good the Rabbitohs were against the Sharkies last week. If the Broncos are a tiny bit off their game, the Rabbitohs are just in kill mode right now. They want to knock as many teams out of the competition as possible. And there's not many better teams for Wayne Bennett to get a win over than the Broncos. So he'll have the boys fit and firing. The Broncos can't lose a match to someone below them on the ladder if they want to be serious finals contenders like they've showed us in glimpses throughout the season. So we've seen Payne Haas battle through niggles, for the last 2 or 3 months through Origin. He came back from that Origin match, looked like he was gone up the tunnel and gone in one of those returned from Origin and ended up pumping out about an 80-point score. So yeah, he might be playing injured, but if he's named on that team sheet and he runs out there with the rest of the boys to start the match, you got to be a pretty brave person to leave him out of your team. If you leave him out, there's every chance, he has his normal game. He might get 60 minutes and an easy 60 to 80 point score. You'd be cheering if he went up the tunnel after 20 and scored a 20. But I don't see that happening. If he's on the team sheet, if he's in that locker room 3 minutes before the kickoff happens, and if he runs out the tunnel with the boys, there's no reason why he won't be in my side.
Yeah, and I agree. And so, it's pretty easy for me. We'll just continue harping on about the big three that they're set and forget every time they make that team sheet. I guess the question is, you've already answered it a little bit in terms of, what your bench makeup is going to be. You've got a second spot there potentially. I've potentially got a second spot as well, or I might have 2 spots on the bench there that I might need to fill, depending on how I'm going to finish my squad out. In terms of maybe another middle and where you might be going next, is there any thoughts?
I see a bit of downside in the edge forward position this week. We've got a number of big names unavailable for selection or out for the rest of the season that I'll touch on later in the edge forward position. But yeah, with Harry Grant on the bench, that leaves me with one either middle or edge player. And I think I'm just going to go the safety and Aaron Clark. I think having a mixture between safety and some upside is always good for your bench forward position. So with Harry Grant there alongside Aaron Clark, I think I've got a mixture of both. I probably wouldn't play him after last week's 50-minute performance. He's still got a solid, 50 or 53-point score, which isn't amazing. But when you factor in a few things, he's looking like a much better start this week. And that's really due to the loss of James Fisher-Harris. Right now, their pack is pretty depleted. And without JFH commanding those big minutes and commanding a lot of work through the middle, they've got to turn to a bloke like Aaron Clark. Jackson Ford himself has been really good as well, if you want to take a gamble on him as an edge forward. But look, the makeup of the Warriors bench is really interesting. They've got Tane Tuapiki, and also they've got Freddie Lussick on the bench there as well. Now, Freddie Lussick is probably only likely to play as a hooker, and Tuapiki is probably just that back injury cover as well. So with only Jacob Laban and Starwell Smith on the bench, it's a pretty small bench and a bench that doesn't get through plenty of big minutes in the middle. So I know Aaron Clark, his middles have been pretty odd for the last 4 or 6 weeks, anywhere between that 50 or 60, but he's played 66 and 72 minutes at times during this season with JFH out there, not there, with two really little blokes on the bench. I think there's a world where Aaron Clark can see upwards of the 60 or 65 minutes, and that means he'll get pretty close to a 60-point score, and that's the safety I'm after.
Yeah, and I like that. The thing that I guess I 100% agree with, the makeup of that bench and moving forward. Obviously, Wade Egan out for a period of time as well, again, unfortunately. But I think for me, the thing is that Clark's still sort of averaging around that 56 to 58 minutes mostly. He's sort of had a bit of a roller coaster of minutes as well, but it's sort of around that, and his outputs remain pretty consistent around that 50 GDS mark. I guess the difference is when Barnett was out earlier in the season and they were trying to fill that role, Clark did stand up there, so I could definitely see him standing up again. But for me, I'm going slightly different, and I kind of like that we've got some differences. I had a look at King, I had a look at Tarpany, both sort of averaging those 50 minutes and that GDS at about that 50. So again, I was looking for some upside, and I landed on Nath White, who we've spoken about at length, the last month or so. But his minutes have really increased over that last month, up to about 65 per game. And as a result, his output then for GDS points is increased to about 56. So if I'm going to play that fourth middle, which I more than likely will, rather than 4 edges, because that, as we're going to talk about in a minute, there's plenty of injuries through that edge position. I think I might play White, just looking for that upside of time on field and how that's then going to translate to more than likely an increase in base stats. He probably doesn't have a huge upside in terms of attacking stats. But the other thing I like is Manly have given up an average of 50 points to starting props in the last month, and that includes a 74 to May, who's obviously at a completely different level. Then also a 63 to Samuel Hughes from the Bulldogs, who started a prop the other week. So there's definitely an opportunity there for White to be pretty dangerous, and we know he doesn't mind a tackle break as well. So yeah, I'm going to go with that, which I like. It's a little bit different, but I'm just looking for that little bit more upside, and it might come down to a couple of points here or there at the end of the day, but I think maybe there's an opportunity for White. And just quietly, unrelated to GDS, but I'm so keen to see Sam Healy for the Warriors starting at hooker. There's so many raps on him, and he's been playing so well, before top grade. So good on him for getting a start. Unfortunately, it's at the loss of Wade Egan, but really keen to see how he goes.
So if you can get yourself a Sam Healy card on the transfer market nice and cheap, Dill certainly recommends that. Mate, just very quickly, Aaron Clark, his scores without Barnett, without James Fisher-Harris, just in case this can sway you at all: 53, 58, 67, 66, and 72. So some really solid scores there when the troops are down. So something to think about. Love Nat White. He's played in my team a number of times, but yeah, I'm just taking advantage of Aaron Clark. You've got a lot of extra work to do with some of those bigger boys around you being out.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess then that makes it difficult as well if we're looking at potentially a second hooker in that bench spot. We've talked about 5 middles that could score us 50 to 60 plus. And then we've got a couple of edge forwards that we can look at as well. It makes it really difficult. But in terms of the edges, look, we're starting to run a bit thin on some of our elite edges. There's quite a number of injuries that have happened over the last few weeks. Obviously, we're missing out on the likes of Dylan Lucas, Toby Couchman, Kalonga Matangi, Nicholson, even to an extent. He's been gone for a while, but some Olakauatu as well. They're all injured. A lot of them are done for the season as well. We've got some genuine options. Obviously, Huddy Young's that first main option that I don't think anyone is going to go past. I think he's a set and forget. The Dragons are allowing 50 points in the last month to left edges, which is 10 points more than their season average. And Young is just an elite edge in the way that he continues to accumulate fantasy points across the park. We talked earlier in the season about his try scoring ability. That's dropped off a little bit, but his scores have remained around that 60 odd points, per game, which is for the edges, it's top of the table there. So I think Young, I'll talk about a couple of salary pods tonight. I think Young's definitely one of those salary pods where I'd say majority of coaches are going to plug and play Young, and then there's an opportunity to maybe upgrade him to a silver or gold if you're playing that classic or contender competition.
Yeah, I love that shout. We've obviously got the likes of Blake Brayley, the 3 locks in the middles in Haas, May, and Yo as some players that we can certainly throw some salary at. But yeah, I love that Hudson Young shout. If everyone's going to be playing him, the way to get different is obviously slap a bit of extra salary on him. And it might be a week where you want to put a little bit less on Payne Haas. He still might get his 50 to 60 points. But if you throw a platinum on him and he only gets his 50, you're not really, getting that much upside on everyone else that played him. But yeah, it's a really good opportunity. A great week, I think, particularly in the backs where we're going to have a lot of really good options, and it's going to be who that extra salary is being thrown on that might determine the Classic Cup, the Classic competition, and the contender competition. So I'm really looking forward to how the advice that you're going to give out in terms of how you're using that salary. But I love that Huddy Young shout. Mate, Jacob Preston for me is the other lock in that edge forward position. Look, there has been some weeks where he hasn't looked to be too involved, and a lot of the Penrith attack, a lot of the Bulldogs attack we know goes to the left. But look, he's still getting through plenty of work. He made 49 tackles despite, the Dogs putting on a monster score there against Manly, and he still ran for 100 metres. Still a really impressive score, and he's every chance to score a try on that right-hand side of the field, particularly after they make maybe a half break. We saw Burton running the footy a lot more. If Burton's getting tackled, that means the ball is being passed to the right more frequently, and that's where Lockie Galvin, Preston, Critter, and Karaz, before he's moved to the back, that's where they, can really capitalise. So he's the other guy, just like Huddy Young, that I can see a lot of upside in on that edge. But yeah, for me, you rattled off those names, those injured players, apart from maybe one more bloke on that list that you're likely to start in your team. I don't really want to touch too many of those edge forwards. We've seen Hoskins' minutes be a little bit up and down. One player on that list that I know you won't mention, but you can talk about the other bloke. Jackson Ford got through 74 minutes last week, and that was still with Fisher-Harris playing his 50 and Aaron Clark 60. But 74 minutes, 54 tackles, and a pretty solid 59-point score. So he's another one that could provide a bit of safety on the bench. He won't do too much in the attacking department, but yeah, look, if he can pump out 74 minutes and now there's no James Fisher-Harris, there's no reason why he can't get some similar numbers and maybe make 50 tackles again.
And look, I think you've read the mind of Sif Kanga, because he's going Preston
Wow.
and Ford there. So
Okay.
Sif Kanga's following the advice there of Jackson Ford. Jackson Ford's an interesting one. He seems to have some of those games where he just goes absolutely bananas, and he comes up with a try and a try assist, and 150. Yeah, exactly. And then he goes weeks where he plays his 50 or 60 minutes and he doesn't come up with much. So it's always a risk looking at playing him. But like you said, the Warriors at the moment are a bit of a disarray, and the less we talk about them, the better. But definitely an option. Look, the thing about Preston for me, I obviously his footy in the last month in terms of GDS points have taken a bit of a dip. That's obviously attributed to his season low of 22 against the Broncos a couple of rounds ago in round 18. Ignoring that score, he looks like a decent option, and I'm still going to play him. The concern I have, I guess, is when I break down the stats with Galvin in the side and out of the side. And I know Galvin was in and out of the side in terms of coming off the bench and his role that he was playing until the last couple of weeks, where they've sort of solidified him on the right side half there. But without Galvin in the side, Preston this season has averaged 61 GDS points. With Galvin in the side, whether that's off the bench or starting, Presto's average has decreased to 47. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a direct result of Galvin, but there might be something in it just to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks and how that combo goes. I know it's new. We've talked about it the last couple of weeks, how we just want it to explode and have a massive output between the two of them, along with Critter, Karaz, etc. But it just doesn't seem to quite be clicking at the moment. In saying that, Presto's gone a couple of weeks without a try, and we know how good he is getting over the line. So the law of averages suggests he's probably going to cross the line this weekend. And let's hope that, that's off a Galvin short ball or a grubber through, so that combination starts to click and we start to see that happening, because I know that there's a number of coaches out there with the Galvin card that are really keen to see him start performing so that they can use him in the future as well. So, yeah, I'm playing Preston. I've just got some reservations over, I guess, what I expect Preston to score. If he gets over for a try, I think we're in for all money with, a 65 to a 70 score potentially. The other player you touched on is, you didn't name him, but is Ali Katoa. And look, unfortunately, he's really taken a nosedive over the last 2 weeks when we're looking at his 5-round average. We were talking about him scoring big a few weeks ago. He had an average of 65 GDS points over a couple of games, and then it's dropped down quite significantly with a couple of 30s or a 30 and a 40. Especially hard to look at when we were talking about that massive combo between Katoa and Hughes, and we wanted to exploit that at every opportunity moving forward. With Hughes injured, I think a lot of coaches will probably jump off the ECAT train, the Ali Katoa train. And I think for me, that sort of shows a bit of opportunity potentially, and it could be a bit of a risk play. But the thing I like is, Katoa without Hughes, although that's only happened once this year. If we go back to last year and the year before, 2024, 2023, Katoa's played 5 80-minute games without Jerome Hughes. During that time, he averaged 140 metres, 33 tackles, 2.5 tackle breaks for a base and power of 55 GDS points on average. Adding to that, he had an attacking upside of 2 try assists, 4 line breaks, and 2 tries. So I don't think you lose a whole lot with Hughes not on the field. We've seen Wishart have some unreal games for Melbourne as well, and sort of some career-breaking games for Wishart. So I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing. And I kind of like the idea that a lot of coaches might be getting off Ali Katoa. It might just be that kind of pod that I need to sort of get back in the winning circle, albeit with quite a bit of risk involved as well, which we've seen obviously the last 2 weeks in the scores that Katoa's produced.
Gee, you might need to keep those stats to yourself. Yeah, the gut feel is that he just doesn't quite see the same amount of ball or the same quality ball without Hughes there on his inside. But like you've just proven, the stats don't seem to back that up too much. And if anything, his drop-off isn't too much. So, yeah, look, if the Storm want to get rolling, they haven't been amazing over the last couple of weeks. They've now got to work out how to play footy without Jerome Hughes there for the rest of the regular season. And a lot of it's probably going to go through Harry Grant and Cam Munster. But, Wishart is pretty creative with the footy there, and he'll find a way to get Eli Katoa involved. And now I think I'm going to have to find a way to find an Eli Katoa card in at least one of my 4 sides, because I can't be left with my pants around my ankles if he does score a try or two and gets through his normal 50 to 55 points in base. So thanks for that, mate. I thought I was locked and loaded in terms of my bench, but we got another thing there to consider.
And the benefit is that we can, like we talk about each and every week, we've got 4 or 5 competitions that we're looking at, and we've got a variety of cards that we can play, and sometimes we load up in our main one. So whether that's the champion or challenger side that you're looking at the moment to make sure you solidify that top 3 spot, or for me really pushing for that classic side and looking to get into the top 10 there, I play my main cards in that sort of competition, and then I look to hedge and spread out across the rest. And there's every opportunity that you can jag a win. In fact, I did so in Challenger early in the season by playing some of those pods that I wasn't keen to play in my more focused competitions, and I ended up jagging a win, a top spot in Challenger, and along with that $750 in prize money. So every opportunity that some of these pods do play off for you, it's just about finding the right combinations.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we get some comments in the chat here? Who does everyone diversify their squads across their 2, 3, 4 teams that they're putting out each week, or is anyone, I don't know what to call them, but does anyone put the exact same players across all of their squads? Gee, that would I could not do that. But is anyone game enough to admit that they do, or is everyone a diversifier like Dill and I? While you're putting that in the comments, Dill, let's get on to the halves. I think we got a number of really good options here, and all 6 of those guys on the list could be playable. Even though Jaden Campbell, probably the one least likely, he's coming off a monster score last week. He does get the Penrith Panthers away, but Penrith Panthers at home. But we know that the Penrith Panthers can be susceptible to some players across the park, particularly those creative fullbacks. And Jaden Campbell, although he's playing on the right-hand side, he can certainly pop up and put a big score. And I think if you're looking for a pod in the halves, it could be Jaden Campbell.
Yep.
But I can't get there this week. I think there's too many other options outside of him. And look, Adam Reynolds didn't even make our top 6 for this week. And I think he's every chance to go well there against the Rabbitohs after we've seen a lot of points leaked against a number of positions against the Rabbitohs there. I don't think he's going to run away for 80 meters, an 80-meter try again, but we're expecting probably plenty of tries for the Bronx and plenty of goals for Reynolds. So that just shows the depth of halves we have. Mate, I'm sure you're playing Nathan Cleary just like me, just like probably 99.9% of the rest of the Game Day squad community. Yep. If you don't yet own yourself a Nathan Cleary card, get on over to the transfer market, because you're only doing yourself a disservice. We know how good he is. He's just an absolute freak in the normal NRL competition. Hasn't yet translated to Origin. We love saying that because the Maroons keep winning series. But, mate, outside of Nathan Cleary, who do you like?
Yeah, there's 3 really that I like at the moment, and it's going to be tough to try and fit them in and where I fit them in. Just on Adam Reynolds running the length of the field, I want to see that a little bit more, because Reece Walsh then took over the kicking duties at the end of that runaway try.
Yeah.
And spoiler, but we're going to be playing Reece Walsh this week for some obvious reasons. And if he can get the kicking tee as well at any point, that's just absolute gold. Look, I am playing Nathan Cleary, obviously. I guess it's another salary pod for me. So I've got a couple of key salary pods that I'm looking to load up on. Nathan Cleary is obviously one of those. Last week, obviously, a couple of question marks over how fit he was going to be and returning there, and whether he would kick goals or not. And it just doesn't really matter who his matchup is, what he's doing on the park. He just seems to accumulate points without even seemingly doing much on the field. And so I think for me, it's just really easy to go, I'm going to play gold or potentially platinum in the classic. And then, definitely if I was in contender, I'd be looking at using the most salary there and playing that gold card in Cleary.
Yeah.
The next 3 for me, and this is the order that I have them in at the moment, but that could change at any point at any time, is Jamal Fogarty, then Izzy Katoa, and then Nicho Hynes. And it's hard to split all 3 of those, really. They've all got some great matchups this week, particularly Izzy Katoa against the hapless Warriors. if we have a look at the Warriors team, they're in absolute all sorts. We've already talked about James Fisher-Harris being out. Wade Egan now joins him. Chanel Harris-Tavita joins him on the sideline. We've also had Barnett and Metcalf ruled out, obviously, earlier in the season, and Rocco Berry as well, who's a massive defender. In the side. So we've got so many players out, and it's just one of those weeks or one of those months where the Warriors just can't get anything right. We saw the clutch win against the Knights a couple of weeks ago, and then the horrible disappointment in losing to the bottom side and in the Titans last week. And obviously Jaden Campbell had a massive game there, and Katoa just slots straight in it, and just a perfect opportunity for him. Katoa's been averaging 56 GDS points across the season, and that's been pretty consistent. That hasn't really changed too much. So the last month of footy, he's also averaging about 55. The thing I love, he's fresh off the bye, and the Dolphins should just cause some absolute havoc, particularly down the left side with Katoa, and it's where the Warriors let in 50% of their tries, which is massive. So I think Katoa is going to have a massive score this week, and he's definitely second on my list. And then it just comes down to Fogarty up against the Dragons or Hines up against the Cowboys. The Cowboys' defense of right side halves has been a little bit better compared in the last month compared to the previous 10 or so rounds, 15 rounds before that. They've been allowing 65 GDS points throughout the season, but in the last month, they've tightened their defense up to right side halves and been only allowing 40 points. Nico Hines coming off some pretty good games the last few weeks. I feel like it might be a down game for him. So I think I'm just leaning towards Fogarty, who hit his 700 kicking meters mark last week for the first time this season. So I think you put out potentially 1,000 meters, sorry. 1,000 yards. Thinking about NFL now. 1,000 meters before the end of the season. Do you reckon we're going to get there?
Mate, my hot take was 1,000 meters or 0 in the column of every other player in the team, and only the kicking meters coming off his boot. We're close. Sometimes it takes 25 or 30 minutes before, like, an Ethan Strange boots one downfield. Huddy Young loves a bit of a grubber in behind. Sometimes Corey Horsburgh puts that stat to bed as well. But yeah, look, an 800 or 900 is certainly in the realm of possibility. We're probably a little bit too far away from that 1,000 mark, but it just goes to show that he's every chance. The commentators harp on about it just about every game, about his kicking, but you can just see he just hits them so cleanly. He hit that dropout about 65 on the fly where they weren't expecting that long dropout, and I think it bounced to about the opposition 20-meter line. So he can do that after the ball hits the ground. He can do it when he makes solid contact in the air as well. And particularly with some weather around, mate, I think we haven't really had to worry about too much poor weather in the last couple of weeks. But I know that there's a lot around sort of the Sydney games, and that game's in Wollongong. Look, if it is wet and if it is a bit of a grind, he's obviously going to get through his tackles. But that's where the kicking game becomes so important. And he's a player that's not afraid to kick on the third or the fourth, either for field position or going for that 40-20 where the ball can skid along. So yeah, I'm not really concerned with playing someone like Jamal Fogarty in those conditions. But I've got him at 3 on my list and Katoa at number 2 on my list. So we've got some really similar thoughts there across the halves position.
Yeah, and just on Fogarty as well, they played the Dragons in round 18. So it's a repeat of that from a few weeks ago. He had 31 tackles, 611 kicking meters, 4 goals, 2 try assists, which gave him a score of 67. So he's definitely got it in him. And if anything, that Dragon side is worse off than it was 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, mate, that left side, King Togia, Luciano Leilua, Max Fiangai, Corey Allen. Gee, that doesn't really scream I can defend and stop Fogarty, Hosking, Timoko, Savage, who are on fire at the moment. I think if that was a boxing match, I think the boys in green would win that 4-0 pretty comfortably. So I want a piece of that. If I'm not playing a Hosking, you can't really play a Savage and trust him, but he's bound to score 100 at some point. Timoko is probably a play for a lot of people, but yeah, I've just got to get a piece of that, and that piece is definitely through Jamal Fogarty.
Yeah, well, let's jump over the centres because you did touch on Matt Timoko, and that's one of the players that I'm definitely looking at playing this week for those exact reasons. The Dragons' defence has been horrible over the last few weeks, giving up an average of almost 30 NRL points per game over the last month. So there's plenty of opportunity for tries to be scored. So I'm going to play Timoko for all of those reasons. The right side of the Dragons have allowed an average of 52. The Dragons have allowed an average of 52 to right side centres over the last month, which is almost 20 points more than their season average. The thing I'm concerned about is there's two things that I'm nervous about playing Timoko. One is that I hate chasing last week's points, and we obviously saw him have a big score of 75. And I hate loading up on a team that is a clear favourite. And there's a lot of Raiders currently sitting in my team. So, look, both of those things have come back to bite me plenty of times, but all these stats just point towards Timoko having another great game. And we know that it comes through a whole range of stats as well. He's got some base in him. He's got that power game in those tackle breaks. He doesn't mind an offload, and he knows how to find the try line. So I think with those personnel changes at the Dragons, I think Timoko is going to cook. So I'm going to run with him in sort of a week where we've got a few options and there's sort of some touch and go options. I think the big one is obviously Herbie Farnworth. Are you looking to play him again this week?
Mate, he's an absolute lock and load. I just hope some people forget to play him this week because the Finns are on the bye last week. And if they just keep whoever their centers were without clearing their team and forget, but that's probably wishful thinking. He's alongside Terrell May. If you don't have a Herbie Farnworth card, then you'd probably be one of very few people that aren't playing him this week. I think he's an absolute certainty. If anything, his scores over the past month are even going to, be improved upon with Cody Nikorima. He's just so direct with the ball on the left-hand side, and he knows how dangerous Hammer is out the back. And then Herbie out there on the left. So yeah, Herbie's scores have been better there with Cody Nikorima. He comes back. He's probably a little bit underdone, so he's probably going to dish that ball even more. And it's just remarkable how easily Herbie can turn nothing into something with one fend, with one step, with one jink. I'm sure he'd be someone that you're considering to be a big salary pot on as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we've said that the salary pot enough times that we have to trademark that phrase for sure. But yeah, definitely. It's just another opportunity where, as you say, majority of coaches are going to play Farnworth. So it's just an opportunity to not try and be too smart and overthink it. Just play the players that are going to really score well, that everyone else is playing, but just use that salary wisely and put a gold, put a platinum on someone like Herbie Farnworth, and you're going to reap the rewards there, where someone might play as bronze and you've got an extra 10, 15, 20 points up your sleeve. And look, at the moment, based on the classic scores overall, that could be the difference between a prize card or no prize card. Currently, I'm sitting in the 20th spot on that leaderboard, and I'm 8 points behind a prize card in the prize card draft. So I've got heaps to play for. And look, if we wanted to go deeper, I could continue to break down a few of the other competitions as well and how close all of those are for the overall. So yeah, use that salary wisely. So I think I've thrown out about 3 or 4 salary pods, and it's just about, I guess, putting the right ones in the right position and distributing that salary nice and easy. Look, a couple of things have come through. I'm going to jump back. We did ask how you set up your teams across all the different squads. Mel said that if she's not sure of a player or a combo, she's going to mix it up. So I guess if you're solid on Herbie Farnworth, then you're going to play him across all 4. Seth Kanga also says he generally has a mix of players across each of his competitions. And then Tom H just shared his thoughts around about diversifying depending on what cards he has available. And I think that's a really good point. If you don't have a particular card, there's plenty of ways to get it. Head over to the Discord, join the GameDay Squad Discord, type in the chat, you're looking for a trade, and I'm sure someone will help you out. I know plenty of the coaches that have been around for a while are more than happy to send through a bronze or a silver if necessary. And then Tom H is going the anti-pod of Farnworth. Good work, Tom H. Well done, mate.
I presume the lull at the end means he's being a tad facetious.
Probably.
With the lull at the end there. Look, Tom, it's your funeral, mate, but good on you.
Probably.
I don't know if that's going to work out in your favour.
Look, and just on some of the other players there, the playable players, the ones that I probably have in my next sort of 3, 4, 5 position are going to be people like Jackson Purdue up against the Sharks. They've been given up quite a few points over the last month or so to left centres, ranging from 50 to 80 GDS points across the left centre position there. And then on the other side of the field, in the right centre position, Jesse Ramian lines up there as well, and I think he could have a big game. The Cowboys have given up 55 on average the last month to the right centres, so I think they're two players potentially. The fades for me are Garrick up against the Roosters and then RTS up against the Dolphins. Both defensive have been really solid against the left wing position, averaging over around between 25 and 35 the last month to the two spots. So I think, for me, I'm going to fade both Garrick and RTS this week.
Yeah, Garrick was disappointing last week. I think there's going to be a bit of a turnaround from Manly, and I think they're going to come out firing. So this could be an up week for Manly and Garrick. But yeah, I can't go there either. I'm actually going to play someone that's not even on that list. I'm warm. Look, the Dogs are clicking. The Dogs are firing. He's now got the goal kicking duties, locked in. He kicked 7 goals on the weekend, and he kicked them really well. The Dogs are scoring plenty of points. They're getting better each week. And look, I probably wouldn't consider him if he was someone that was not goal kicking and just that staying on that right side of the field as a right center and a good attacking team. But the goal kicking is certainly a big plus. And look, last week he scored 21 points just from goal kicks. He's one of the most damaging centers on his day with ball in hand. He'll get through plenty of tackles. I don't love Karaz leaving his side and moving out to the back for a Stephen Crichton perspective, meaning those half chances where Karaz palms a few blokes and scores. Crichton might not necessarily get that same sort of points with either Tuala or Renakama on his outside, but yeah, look, he can go big, and he's proven his last couple of games since Origin. He's gone over 50 twice and kicking plenty of goals. So he's probably just got that higher base than someone like Timoko, who's definitely got some 30s in him. He might have a solid game, but just might not necessarily find the line breaks or tries. It might happen more down the left or even one inside him in sort of Hosking or Fogarty. But I'm pretty confident on Critter continuing that against a pretty poor Tigers team.
Yeah, and the good thing again, the Tigers have allowed 34 to right centres this season, but that's increased the last month to almost 50 points in GDS on average. So there's definitely a vulnerability there for Crichton. But as you said, there's plenty of players on that right side that will want to eat, and we've got a couple of them in our sides. And then that move of Karaz to fullback is obviously going to shake things up a little bit as well. But like you said, going up in threes is always a benefit, and the Dogs are looking good in the back end of the season. And I feel like they could put plenty of points on the Tigers. So Critter's going to have a say in terms of GDS points in one way or another, I would suggest.
And I feel like a bit of a pod as well. You mentioned the wingers, mate. You mentioned Jacob Karaz. Look, I don't actually know how good this move to the back is going to be. We know that he's a pretty damaging finisher, a really good finisher there on the right-hand side. If he gets half a sniff, he'll go over the top of two blokes and score with a couple of tackle breaks. He's also really good with his carry on play too. Look, they don't really want to kick to him, opposition teams, because of how damaging he can be. But his play on tackle too, when he's got more blokes behind the ball, means he's more willing to throw that offload. He'll probably get through his 20, 25, 28 runs as a fullback. He'll chime into the back line on both sides of the field. But he might not necessarily get those same amount of tackle breaks or offloads if he's carrying the ball up on play one, if they do kick to him as a fullback, which is probably more likely to get the footy from. There's definitely some upside, but there's also some question marks. You wouldn't really say it for too many blokes, but look, wing might actually be his best position. We don't have a big sample size. He didn't score massive last time he played in that position. He scored a moderate score, but I think he's got plenty of upside there on the wing. Gee, if he can show some crisp ball playing on the right and the left side of the field, I'll be laughing. But yeah, he's just so damaging. He loves an offload if he's got some teammates behind the ball. So I can't leave a Jacob Karaz out of my team. But it's always that second wing spot that I seem to get wrong just about every single week. So I presume you're playing Karaz. And if so, who are you looking at for spot 2?
Yeah, I'm definitely playing Karaz. And yeah, I've sat here all week, or all the last 2 days, I should say, and just going, is that move for Karaz? It feels like a whole week. Is that move for Karaz a good thing or a bad thing? And I think it is a good thing. I think he will have success there. As you said, he's played one game at fullback in his career, and he ran for 175. He made 4 tackles. He had 4 tackle breaks and 2 offloads. So pretty similar sort of style of game, I would suggest. Obviously, there is some downside there as well. the thing for me, though, is the Tigers have really dropped off in terms of their defence against the fullback position, and they've allowed an extra 10 points to opposition fullbacks in the last month. So they're averaging 57.5 to opposition fullbacks over the last month or so. So I think, again, there's some opportunity there for Kiraz. And as you said, if we can get some crisp ball playing, some big hard runs there, maybe taking that first hit up and then looking for a second or third later in the set as well. I just think that could be gold, and I'd love to see that connection with him and Burton, and him and Galvin sweeping around the field. If he plays both sides, I think it's going to be unreal for Kiraz and for all those people that play Kiraz. And you're right, the second one is the hard one. And for me, it was Toto last week, and Lomax outscored him, and it probably cost me the Classic Cup potentially matchup there. But I'm going to go back to Toto again. During the season, the Titans have allowed an average of 40 to left wingers. Over the past month, they're now allowing 47.5. So there's an opportunity there for Toto to exploit a little bit. He's been super quiet, though, sort of post-origin period. He's averaging about 41 GDS points since the end of that comp, since the end of that series. And he's only had 4 tries this season for the Panthers. Obviously played less games for a number of reasons, but that's well below his 2024 total of 12. And we know that he's better than that. He obviously had a big couple of games in the Origin arena and scored some great tries, but it just hasn't translated back to the Panthers at the moment. So if he doesn't cross over for a try, I'm going to be a little bit concerned, but his score should probably still be around 40 points in base and power. So in a position that's quite hot and cold, I think 40 points you're not going to be too upset about. It's just going to be whether that third option that we talk about in Lomax or Nawaqanitawazi, something like that, and they're going to have a big game, and that's where you're going to be disappointed if you didn't get on that score.
Yeah, I agree. I see a bit more safety in a Brian Toto playing for the Panthers against the Gold Coast Titans. It'll be nice, beautiful, clear skies Saturday afternoon on the Gold Coast. Whereas we might be trying to play some of these other blokes in some poorer weather conditions, and that's always, pretty detrimental for the winger position. So, yeah, Bizza for me, he's going to score tries. He's going to score them in bundles eventually. It hasn't been happening. They seem to be going down the left through, Talangi, McLean, Jenkins a lot, whereas the right hand side of the field is technically where they're far more damaging and have a lot more experience there. It won't be long before Dill Edwards and Nathan Cleary link up a little bit more, post-injury, post-state of origin. They'll get that clicking again on the right-hand side of the field, and that's where we know Bizza doesn't need too much room. He'll create something out of nothing, and if he's fit and firing, I see some upside and some tries next to his name against the Titans than someone like Lomax against the Storm. We know that the Storm are, that they're pretty leaky to left-hand side defenses. Lomax is on the right. Mitchy Moses is obviously going to play in a Lomax's hand as much as he can, but the Storm defensively are a little bit better on that side of the field. And they all know that, that they'll be smarting to how dominant Moses and Lomax are going to try to be on that side of the field. So they'll have a plan to try to nullify both of those players. It'll be a game that the Storm expect to win. It'll be a game that they will try to win as well as they can. And it just might mean Lomax, the 2 tries against the Bronx last week and just the 50 points. If someone like Zachy Lomax is scoring 2 tries and kicking a few goals, you'd probably expect more than 50. So, I feel like something similar this week. Just hoping for that big Bizza explosion game where a few people don't go in because he's got those sort of 30s and 40s in recent weeks.
Yeah, well, it looks like there's a couple that aren't going towards him at the moment. Sif Kanga's gone Kiraz and Nawaqanitawazi, which is definitely a good shout there. And then, as we said, Matty P's going Kiraz and Lomax. So, yeah, maybe we're sort of thinking a little bit different there. So potentially Toto is a bit of a pod. Probably not something I thought I would say, but I don't mind that at all. And as you said, surely, again, the law of averages, he's got to be able to get over that line sooner or later. And I think there's just one big score around the corner for Toto, because generally, like you said, if he scores one, he goes on and scores a second or a third as well. And it generally results in a couple tackle breaks in that try scoring moment as well. So, yeah, I'm pretty keen to continue with Toto at the moment. I just hope I don't regret that.
Yeah, absolutely. Plenty of different combinations there for the wing. Get your combinations for fullbacks in the chat as well. Let's see how many different combinations we can see in the chat, because, Dill, we could probably very really justify why 4 different combinations of 3 different players from the list just on the screen here will be the top point scorers this week. But have you settled on 3 fullbacks? Have you got 1 definite and 2 maybes, or are you good with your 3 so far?
I've got 1 definite, and I've got about 4, maybe 5 maybes. But I'll talk about the definite, and that is Reece Walsh. We dropped that teaser before, and I think it's a no-brainer. The Rabbitohs just continue to struggle to contain an opposition fullback, and that doesn't matter what the situation is. I threw out Will Kennedy last week as an option. I think that's exactly how you responded. You laughed in my face. I did play him in my contender side. He returned a score of 51, which isn't horrible. But, as a result of that, he didn't score a try either. So there's plenty of upside there as well. And if Kennedy and Connor Tracy can score 50 plus against a woeful Bunnies defense, I expect that the electric and fleet-footed, agile Reece Walsh to probably just go that little bit bigger and a little bit better. Obviously, the first 8 games of the season were pretty horrible for Walshy, and he was returning an average of only 35 GDS points across those first 8 games. However, since that injury and a bit of time away, he's pumped up that average to 52 points per game. And it's not just his attacking stats, his running, his kicking meters have both increased over the last few weeks. I think those kicking meters in particular have taken a big increase over the last 2 weeks. And we love to see that in terms of that base and power. He's also breaking tackles more so than he is missing tackles, which is also great to see as well. That tackle break miss tackle ratio for me is super important because you really don't want to miss out on those 3 points from a tackle break where that negative comes into play when they miss a tackle. So he's improved that defensive effort as well. So for me, I think Reece Walsh is a no-brainer. Particularly the last month, the Rabbitohs have allowed 80 GDS points to opposition fullbacks. So I think you're crazy not to play Reece Walsh. Yeah. From there, it's who do you play next and who do you fit in? Look, we've got some comments in the chat. Mel is looking at Teddy, Edwards, and Hammer, and then Drinky. Talk me out of it, please. I'll try and do my best there. Harrison B, he's going Edwards, Teddy, and either Walsh or Hammer. So that's a big call there. Maybe leaving Walsh out of the side. And then, in fact, Sif Kanga is doing the same in Edwards, Teddy, Walsh, or Hammer as well. So there's a lot of divide there. Can we sort of clear that up for a few people? Are you looking at playing Walsh? And then who are you looking at pairing with him?
Yeah, Walsh, massive for me as well. That Will Kennedy stat says it all. The last month against the Rabbitohs, it's no coincidence that fullbacks are absolutely killing it, and Will Kennedy's just proven that. 50 points, no disrespect to Will Kennedy, not typically a renowned fantasy scorer, but if he can score 51 points, and it wasn't a smashing either. It wasn't like the Sharks won by 48 points like we thought that they could, and Kennedy could score a 50 or a 60 that way. It was a grind. It was a close match. He didn't score a try. I think the Sharkies only scored, 14 points? They certainly didn't score more than 20. And Will Kennedy still pumps out a 50. So, look, all the signs point to Reece Walsh having a big game. And you just know how many times we've said that on the podcast and it doesn't come to fruition. But I just don't see a world where Reece Walsh doesn't cook. But surely he ends up in that top 3 for the fullback position. So, yeah, Walsh for me. Mate, there's been a lot of shouts for Teddy this week. I'm actually maybe off the Teddy train this week. And not because I think he's a bad player or has a terribly bad matchup. It's just some of the other blokes that have some insane matches on paper, just like Reece Walsh. And if we love that so much, that only leaves us 2 elsewhere. It's tough to go past Dill Edwards and the Panthers with their matchup on the Gold Coast in the sunshine at 3 o'clock. Penrith are hitting their straps. Gold Coast are just trying to stay with their heads above the water and not win the wooden spoon. And that win last week almost sort of guarantees that. But look, Dill Edwards for me is just about pick number 2. And then I still like blokes like Hammer, Tabuai Fido, and even KO Weeks with plenty more upside against over the top of James Tedesco, who is obviously the face of GDS, the absolute GOAT. He'll score plenty of points on his day, but I just see the upside in these 2 blokes, and I'm scratching my head maybe picking between the 3 of them. And I haven't even mentioned a bloke there wearing a Storm jersey, and I think you're pretty keen on him as well.
Yeah, and this is where my dilemma comes in. I love Teddy, and I'm not afraid to say that I think I've played him every week that he's been available, and that was a big reason why obviously went deep into the Classic Cup and then had a win in the GDS Cup as well because of it was on the back of Teddy in particular. He's had some unreal scores and he's played so well over the last 15 or so weeks. But you're right, it's just that potential downside of what he's sort of produced over the last couple of weeks, being in such a tough situation. Manly obviously coming off that massive score against them. You'd think they would come out and want to put a big score or even just show up to begin with. And I think that might mean that Teddy doesn't score as well. He's had a couple of bad games, or not bad games. He's had a couple of lower scores in GDS than what we are used to. So there's obviously an opportunity for him to bounce back as well. In terms of the stats, the Seagulls are pretty good at limiting fullbacks as well. Only 40 points on average across in the season. And then the last month, they've tightened that up slightly to 39 GDS points. So he's potentially someone that I'm fading this week. And I'm pretty upset about it because he has carried me throughout most of the season. Edwards is another probably lock for me. His last 3 scores since Origin have been 70, 73, and then 120 that we saw as well. And look, the Panthers squad are obviously just on an absolute run home, looking to try and even make that top 4 potentially after a horrible start to the season. So, look, the other thing that I like is Edwards has really not lost nothing with the return of Cleary to the side. We sort of talked last week about the potential to lose a few try assists, a few touches on the ball, but he still had a try assist and then crossing for his own last week as well. So I don't think that really, upsets the Edwards owners and the Edwards players. And yeah, look, I can just see another 300 plus running meters at 50 odd kicking meters, 6 tackle breaks and an attacking stat or 2 for Edwards. So I think it's, as you said, he's definitely ranked my number 2. And then that third player for me, just above everyone else at the moment, is Ryan Papenhuyzen. And it's, I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous about the injury and the sort of the whispers around the injury, and he's going to carry it through the rest of the season, and he's just going to have to manage his workload, etc. But I said it last week, and I can't see a world where Bellyache puts Pappy on the field without knowing that he can handle whatever he's about to come up against. If Bellyache wasn't confident, then I don't think Pappy would be playing. And they've got enough players, and Nick Meaney's done a great job for them at the back. So I think that I have faith in Bellamy making the right decision. So for me, that puts faith in my decision in playing Papenhuyzen. Look, in terms of GDS points by fullbacks against the Eels, Weeks pumped out a 49 a couple of weeks ago. Walsh scored 52 against the Parramatta side, so there's plenty of upside there. I think in his last 4 matches before injury, Pappy saw an average of about 50 points, which is slightly below his season average. So he was starting to take a little bit of a dip. But the Storm played the Eels all the way back in round 1. Obviously, teams have changed. Defensive attacking systems slightly modified, slightly changed throughout the season. However, Papenhuyzen scored 82 points in that game. So if he can get back to that sort of form and with the kicking boot, hopefully as well, the kicking tee, hopefully we get to see a big score from Pappy. The other thing is, before round 11, Pappy had 12 tries in 9 games. However, since round 11, he hasn't crossed the line in his last 5 games. So surely he is also due to cross the line there against an Eel side that doesn't mind letting in a few as well.
Yeah, wow. For me, it's just the injury. I've got a bit of a conspiracy here, or maybe not a conspiracy, but a big question that obviously won't be able to be answered. But would he have been named on the team sheet if Jerome Hughes hadn't gone down last week and Bellamy could rely on his main man there in the number 7 jersey? Is it a bit of panic stations where he's maybe rushing Pappy back a fraction too early? But no, you're right. Yeah, they're a professional outfit, the Storm. They've got finals on their mind. He's got to be fit and raring to go. But look, those soft tissue injuries, the report was, tightness, and then it moved into a strain. I think he came on his podcast and sort of said he wished the medical team were, a bit more open about that. But still 3 or 4 weeks with a calf strain, there's probably a likelihood of some re-injury risk. He is that explosive player, and there's a lot of force going through those lower limbs, and maybe not kicking with Meaney kicking them so well. So there's maybe a 9, 12, 15 points that may go begging off his boot without the kicking tee. For me, for a week where there's so many good options, where I'm even, considering leaving Teddy out, yeah, I think for me, Pappy's an easy sort of avoid, and maybe just watching between the fingers, hiding behind the couch Thursday night. And if he's on a tear, then that's a pretty disappointing rest of the weekend, because you're playing catch up against all the Pappy owners. But yeah, look, maybe some upside there, but I see a fraction more downside, and probably that helps answer Mel's question. It's not that necessarily Drinkwater, or in this case Pappenhausen, are bad players or not going to score well. It's, for me, it's the caliber of other players who we can pick from. And I think a big pot alert for me is KO Weeks. Only 4 weeks ago, they played against the Dragons. He ran for 346 metres, 9 tackle breaks, 3 tries, 109 GDS points. The Dragons have been pretty poor to fullbacks throughout the season. They're down on troops now. No Val, no Jaden Sewer. They're just hanging in there. The team's not great. The forwards are getting bashed just about every game. The Raiders are on a roll. They're not far from a bye. So they'll be wanting to stick it to this pack. Just if the weather's decent, if the weather's okay, I think KO Weeks is a big play and a big pod for me. But yeah, if the game's going to be impacted by the wet a lot, he probably comes back into the calculations a bit, and someone like Teddy, who's maybe a bit more safe, will get the nod. But yeah, Mel, I'll answer yours briefly here as well about Drinky. You probably checked his score at halftime last week. What was it, 53? What was his score? What was his score at full time? 53. And unfortunately, that's sort of what players like Drinkwater can do, playing in some of those middling teams who have some other dominant players like Tommy Dearden. He's been on absolute fire, and if Dearden takes a team on his back and does it all himself, Drinkwater suffers as a result. And yeah, one half of outstanding footy, but he can go 40 minutes without putting a point on his score, which is pretty scary to see when you can plug in a Tedesco, a Hammer, and Edwards who just sort of chalk up points for fun.
Yeah, and there's a couple of other questions in the chat that we'll get to, and then I'll share some thoughts of a couple of other players there, or remind some players. Has Walsh got the kicking boot this week from Sif Kanga? The only reason that he kicked one last week is because old boy Adam Reynolds ran the length of the field, and he was absolutely cooked. So I would suggest that Reynolds has got the kicking tee, but I would love to see Walshy have a crack. And then Tom H is suggesting we take one game to have a look at Paps to see how he is before looking to play him. But we've obviously talked about a few times where that has burnt us as well. So a little bit nervous still on that. Look, just on a couple of the comments there. Weeks versus the Dragons. Dragons in the last month have increased their average that they allow to fullbacks up to 61 over the last month. So that's obviously a big thing there. I also saw a report around the potential of some of their old boys being snubbed out of the squad at the end of the season, with some looking at shopping them around or even potentially pushing them to retirement. So I don't know how that's going to play into the hand of the rest of the team. I know that if I was part of a side and some of the veterans were told, hey, you're no longer wanted, you need to retire, I don't think that would go down too well with the playing squad. So I don't know how that is going to have an impact or not on the Dragons side, and whether they stand up for all their mates or whether that they drop their heads a bit. So it'd be interesting to see how that goes there. And then someone like Drinkwater. Look, the Sharks have allowed 40 points to fullbacks this season, but in the last month that's dropped down to 33. So he's another fade for me this week. So if anything, I might be looking at jumping off Pappy if leading into the game, we see that he doesn't have the kicking tee and that Meany is lining up to practice the kicking. There's an easy pivot there to one of those other options we talked about in Hammer or Weeks or even Teddy as well, because the Storm do play tomorrow night. So that's a nice, easy pivot. And as we always say, important to have some pivot options just in case. But look, the 24-hour mail at this stage for tomorrow's game, there's no outs so far in that starting 17. So that means good things for Pappy owners at the moment, but we'll review come an hour before kickoff tomorrow night.
Right, lots of differences, lots of really good combinations, not just between you and me, but with the comment section as well. So it looks like round 22 is going to be fairly open. In saying that, on screen you can see our classic squads as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon, before we've had time to probably make 2 or 3 more changes. But at the moment, Pappy, Timoko, Eli Katoa, and Naf White, your big 4 differences over my Hammer, my Critter, my Harry Grant, and Aaron Clark. And we've just seen in the comments that we've got some different wingers, some different centers, some halves, some forwards as well. I think this will be a week where, we're going to have a lot of variation in teams and probably a bit of a moving week for a lot of teams, whether that's from the top of the ladder moving even higher, or maybe some of those teams chasing, playing some of these pods that have some really big ceilings, and others just trying to go safe. We might see some leaderboards tighten up a little bit as well. So, I think this is going to be a really exciting round, but just quietly fairly confident with my 17 or 18 players there on the left. Another thing
I might put your team into my starter squad then and see how we go.
I guarantee you I'll have at least probably 2 changes from that come Sunday afternoon. Mate, that time of the show again. Another win for Stu. Again, only 2-1. I think we've only had the 3-0 win after 22 rounds, but I think that puts the Bro Down Showdown to bed. I don't think you can claw a win back unless we start being silly and saying 2 points for a win or next match wins or something. But no, it went down to that final game. Karaz needed to beat To'o's score of 48, I think it might have been, and Karaz was just electric there on the wing and scored in the 80s. So 2-1 to me again, which means, Dill, you've got a wheel to spin and a pack to open. Is that right?
Yeah, really not a good week.
I don't really know what to do because I don't do this that often.
Mate, I lost my GDS Classic Cup matchup. I didn't make a top 10 anywhere, and now I've lost Bro Down Showdown. I've had a struggle. Alrighty, those people that commented, Stu, either in the live or post the live being up on YouTube or over on Spotify, your name should be on screen now. Congratulations. Good luck. We're going to spin the wheel. And as always, we're going to give away some cards. Today, we're going to open a 3-player rare pack, and it looks like it is Matty P. Good on you, Matty P. You are going to share in Stewie's glory here. So let's jump across and share this tab instead. You should be able to see that rare pack on screen.
Yep, gotcha.
Beauty. Let's see if we can open this.
Matty P should be here as well.
Matty P. All right, mate. Do you want to have first pick, or would you like to select where Matty P's card's coming from?
Matty P can have one of my cards. He can have the one on the left and the right tonight.
One on the left and the right. So let's start off here. We've got a left card. It is gold, and it is Jackie Williams.
Not bad. Alrighty, and then don't mind that.
Over on the right, we've got another gold. Tallis Duncan. That's a big card.
Hard.
That's a good little pod there. Alrighty, and then in the middle, we have Patea.
Oh, I don't mind that. That'll be a name for the future.
Yeah, I think he had a couple of good games and got across for a couple of tries earlier in the season.
He's been good in his limited time,
Yeah. So some good cards there. So Matty P, get a hold of one of us. And so what is Matty P getting again? So he's getting Jack Williams and Tallis Duncan?
Correct. I want that Patea.
Unreal. There we go. So Matty P, get a hold of one of us and you can grab those cards off us. Unreal work there. Lovely. Alrighty. Well, on to the next Bro Down Showdown. I know that I'm now just playing off for a little bit of pride. Obviously, Stu has taken out the season. Unless someone in the comments wants to convince Stewie otherwise, that we get a couple of double points rounds or something like that, just to make it interesting. But anyway, Bro Down Showdown. The benefit is that we keep giving cards away, even though the Bro Down Showdown is done for the season. You can comment me, Dylan, or Dill, if you think Cleary, Walsh, and May. That's some 3 great options there. That is hard to pass up. Cleary, Walsh, and May this week for me.
I might even vote for Dill this week.
If you think Stu's going to get up, Fogarty, Edwards, and Haas, you make sure you comment Stu either in the comments here right now, in our YouTube video once it's posted, or over on our Spotify. Once again, to get a hold of us on any of those channels, it is at FantasyBros AU. So if you are new to the show or the podcast, make sure you check it out. I do recommend listening to it again so you can pause and rewind some of the selections and make your choices as you go, particularly if you've got some work to do tomorrow and you want to get away from that, you can watch or listen to us again. I would recommend listening because you can't see my beautiful face today. So maybe jump across to Spotify.
Yeah, shout out to Lines of Ezra. I think it is. He'll be listening to the potty tomorrow. Can't catch it on a Wednesday night. but told me that he listens to just about every single Thursday. So there's your shout out, mate. Hope we've steered you in the direction of a couple of good picks, mate. I thought we'd have a lot of deals in the comments, and we do. We got plenty of stews as well. And just quietly looking at your selections, I might even need to jump in and get a deal in there as well. But Ryan P's got some faith in Stu this week. So does Melissa. So does Jay Boney. So if I do manage to get up, there might only be 3 or 4 people who are getting spun, and I'm in some red hot form. Just because it looks like Dill's got some big picks doesn't necessarily mean that Stu can't get the job done. But no, I think this will be one of the closer Bro Down showdowns this season, and a 3-0 wouldn't surprise as well.
Look, just quietly though, Rainsy's just pointed out that Mel's changed her pick. She had she had Stu earlier on, and within about a minute,
Melissa.
she's changed her mind and she's jumped back to me. So she's said, because I removed my Stu because I saw May and Cleary, I read right to left. Okay, fair enough. All right.
Okay, only 2 people. It's going to be a 50-50 spin-off for, who was it, Ryan P and Jay Boney. A head-to-head battle between those two. I wonder if they've ever gone head-to-head before.
Maybe. Alrighty, that is it again. What an unreal show. And we've probably gone a little bit over time because we got a little bit caught up in a few different positions, more so than we normally would. But that's because there's just so many good options. And as you mentioned, that there's a lot of difference this week. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for some change on those leaderboards. So once again, thank you very much to everyone who joined us on the show or is catching us tomorrow or even later on tonight when the replay is posted or when the Spotify goes up. Thank you for your support. We really do appreciate it. We love doing this, and it's all because of everyone that joins us and listens and watches. So thank you very much for that. Look, we've only got a few rounds to go. Round 23 will happen next Wednesday, the 6th. Oh, Michael Cozzy going to be 3-0. Unreal, Cozzy. I love it. Thanks for the support, mates. Love it. So, yep, the next show, round 23, Wednesday, the 6th of August. We're already in August. It's unreal. 7 p.m. kickoff, Australian Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you are here right in time for our analysis of round 23. Good luck to everyone this weekend, particularly Bruiser Cannon. I hope you take out the win so that I can just use that to hang my hat on that I was beaten by the eventual GDS Cup Classic Cup winner.
I'm going for Jacks.
Thanks, Stu. Always good fun to have a chat. Thanks to everyone joining us. Have a good week. Good luck. Take it easy.
Thanks, Dill. Good luck, everyone.